2025 awaits the Fremantle Football Club. They missed the finals, which is a disappointing end to the year. So we've been given the brief. The 5 things Freo needs to clean up or to have in their armoury to be better and be a contender in 2025. We've had amazing feedback on our socials and also 0487 736 736. If you've got any ideas, please let us know. Just a quick one from Ray. Tim, talking back problems for Barris now. 3 weeks ago, he was a premiership player, live member and contracted. Still is, Ray. Still is.
He's also taken out 12 flights a year as well from his back issue, so he might not have back issues as bad as they've been.
Very good point you make there, Two Dogs. All righty, let's go. What do Freo need to do? You can go.
My very first one is have a plan B, because I just too many times this year if their run through the middle link up handball game didn't work, they had nothing else to go to, and so this comes from the coach's box.
Yeah,
I'm talking timing game strategies. 2 minutes to go up, 2 minutes to go down.
So you don't think the coaching staff at Fremantle had a plan B in place at any stage, or they didn't, or they didn't execute it well?
Yeah, it didn't appear to be a plan B in place.
Because they would have had a plan B.
Well, yes, but either I'm assuming they have a plan B, but they couldn't execute it, or it didn't get through to the playing group. And if their plan B, if their plan A didn't work, Plan B certainly didn't either, because they couldn't stop teams who get on a run. So I'm talking, and I know all clubs do it, they need to get theirs right. So this is a coaching box issue. This is timing game strategies, whether it's 5 minutes to go in a quarter or the teams kick 2 or 3 in a row on you. 10 different strategies for certain times of a game. They need to have those, and they need to execute them, because the Essendon one is the glaring one. That last quarter at Essendon in the middle of the ground got absolutely butchered, lost a game they should have won. They lost too many games this season. But
is that simply down to coaching, or is that just...
I think it's got a lot to do with coaching, for sure, because I think their players are good enough. Like if you looked at another team...
Are they?
Yeah, I think they are. If you looked at another team, you could say doesn't have the cattle to do it. I think Fremantle have the cattle to execute. I think they've got smart footballers. I think they've got the cattle to execute different strategies in-game.
Yesterday, before Duff left the studio, just before 8 o'clock yesterday, we asked him to throw one up. He threw exactly the one I want. They can't afford injuries to their pillars. They can't afford a Pearce or Tracy injury.
Yep.
They were glaring that last month. When they weren't there, it was huge for them. And some of them are just simply unavoidable. But fingers crossed more, though, than anything, something that's out of their control, is I genuinely think that if they lose Tracy and Pearce, or Pearce and Tracy, pillars at both ends of the ground, then there are some glaring issues at Fremantle. So they've got to have their fingers crossed that those stars stay sound throughout the year.
Yeah, next one for me, it's a good one. Next one for me, more goals from their midfield. Sarong kicked 11, Brayshaw 7, Young 13. They need more goals from their midfield. If you ever look at, say, Sydney, who don't have Fremantle's forward line, right, is getting there. It's young and it's getting there, and I think it's going to be better and better as the years go on. Sydney doesn't have a dominant forward line, so it's not dissimilar to Fremantle's, right? I think Fremantle's forward line is probably better than Sydney's, but you have a look at Sydney, they've got Hayward at 41, Armady 43, McDonald 37, Papley 36, and you go to Freo as Tracy 45, Amos 36, Frederick 23. They need more goals from their midfield. Warner kicked 35, Goulden kicked 15, Heaney kicked 34. So that's one less than Amos with Warner. So they need more goals from their midfield. Now, I know that they try to work on that late. I mean, Sarong kicked 3 in a game. He finished with 11 for the year. So they need more goals from those midfielders.
Mine is they need to unearth another youngster where we get excited about. They didn't play Erasmus. He dominates in the waffle. Johnston, jury's out, but he got opportunities. Cooper Simpson only played a handful of games. Liam Reedy's a sort of ruckman in waiting, but there's no rush.
Long-term.
I look at their list and I am concerned about where they're now. Again, it's opportunity because you talk about Sarong, you talk about Brayshaw, you talk about Young, you talk about those three in the middle. Bolton now sort of adds to that mix a little bit. He'll be a cameo midfielder, but mostly forward. I worry about where their next young star is. I think they need a pop-up somewhere this year where we go, wow. And I just think they rely so much on the form of those midfielders. The opposition clubs will just know what's being dished up. But we know that West Coast, first pick of the draft, they had Harley Reid. I need, whoever Fremantle draft, I hope they're ready-made and can add some zip and just give us some future look, because I am seriously concerned about Fremantle's depth.
And they've got everything to do with that. They've got everything going their way in this year's draft. Where they sit, I know where they sit in the draft order, they can get a ready-made, big-bodied midfielder. Third one is one that we've been banging on about all year, possibly two, is Luke Jackson's marking. Luke Jackson averages under 2 marks a game. Oh, that's damning. And he needs to spend an entire summer flying for balls, getting hit from each side while he's flying for them, just working on his hands. If he can average, he's 202 centimetres or something, and he's an athlete. He has everything going for him. He gets his hands to so many balls, so he's fit enough to get to contests. Just doesn't take much. He has to start taking 5 to 6 marks a game, which he can do, especially if he's playing in the middle as well. They have to get that piece right. If they can get him clunking balls, then changes their whole game, changes everything for them.
Whether they like it or not, the outside noise will harass and harangue that football club until they find the right blend of Darcy Jackson. And I don't think they know. I believe Darcy's a better ruckman. But until, to your point, Jackson becomes a marking forward to assist Tracy, can you imagine? Amos is your third wheel.
Yep.
Every day of the week.
And he'd be the best third wheel they've seen in the competition.
100%. But Jackson has to dominate games. And when he goes into the ruck, we know he can do that. We can know he could follow up. I get all that. But he does not mark the ball enough.
Doesn't dominate games.
So I think Darcy and Jackson can work. It has to work. And it can't drown the football club, because it will. And they might say, it's outside noise. It doesn't bother us. We think we're tracking okay. We've got to see it soon. We've got to see it soon. Otherwise, and I know Sean Darcy, and everyone talks about his fitness and he's tradable and all that sort of stuff. Sean Darcy could rot on the vine at Fremantle in the next 5 years. One, if he doesn't get his body right and get fit. And also, we don't see him in his best position playing regularly. He's a damn fine ruckman. We've got to see it.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because if you said who's the better ruckman, Jackson or Darcy, the better ruckman is Sean Darcy.
Correct.
But I still think that Fremantle play better with Jackson in the ruck. But as we spoke to David Walls a little while ago, last week, a week before, that they are all in on the combination. Were you just adding on to mine, or you agree with that? That's the combination. The other one for me is tackling pressure. So when Freo don't have the footy, they've got it. They have to be a hunter. They really have to hunt the opposition, and they don't. They sit 15th on the ladder for tackles. Now they sit above only Melbourne, West Coast and Richmond for tackles. So they've got to become a hunting team. And if they can do that, then all of a sudden they have the talent to hurt the opposition on the scoreboard, to hurt them on the rebound. Tackling 15th, no good. Need to improve their tackling. And that's an attitude thing. That's like a desperation thing, gosh. You want to know that your team, when you're barracking with your team, is going to throw themselves at the opposition. If they can become that hungry and that desperate, improve their tackling, they go up the ladder.
In 2024, Fremantle had less clangers than any other team in the competition.
Best disposal efficiency in the game.
So my view is they've got to dine out on that. So, again, that goes back to scoring more, faster starts.
Yeah, start's a big one. Yeah.
Starts at that, a 7-goaler and a 5-goaler and a couple of 4s, but most of them were 3s and 2s.
And losing at quarter time.
Yeah, so fast starts, but their ball use is elite, but sometimes it is just chip type stuff. But at the same time I think their ball use at times is elite, but they've got to dine out up at the other end of the ground. But again, look, I've got one more change to come. One thing I will say is they are so close to being a contender. So close.
I think they're there. The last one for me is tough decisions at the selection. Reputation's out the window. Don't care what you've done. Don't care what your reputation says, what your CV says. Does not matter. Unless there are, unless you're ahead of players, which is another 20 on your list, then you don't play. And, unfortunately, it might mean that, your legends of your football club in Nat Fyfe and Sonny Walters, they might have to go and play at Peel, whether they like it or not. But you need to make tough decisions at the selection table. And I'm undecided whether they're capable of doing that at the moment. If they do, then all of a sudden, not only do you have a competitive team out in the park, you're also preparing for next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. So, as we know, footy's brutal. It's a hard game. You cannot play forever. Tough decision as a selection for me.
Last one for me is they can't afford to have losing streaks. They had a 3-gamer mid-season, and every club does it. Don't get me wrong. Brisbane had 5 games at the start of the year where
Every
they were
club bar
ordinary.
one had 3 in a row this year.
Sydney had a middle patch where they were terrible.
Yeah.
Fremantle lost their last 4 games by an average of 10 points.
So that comes back to not losing at home, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've got to make home the fortress. I think that's every club, but they can do that here. Bottom line is, for me, they are so close. Maybe not as close as West Coast to winning a flag, but they are I'm only joking. They are very, very close. So for me, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I do believe they need to. My overarching one is they need to unearth someone. If that's Erasmus, unearth him and play him. We saw how dominant he can be at the waffle level. We need to see someone like him to be that extra +1 through the midfield that makes Fremantle a contender this year.